So here's a reminder of what the full income statement looks like. So if you would remember, the first part of the income statement was the most challenging part for you guys to memorize. You really do need to learn this first part for your income statement. Now, this is a sole trader, but all the other businesses that you are going to learn, it's the same format with some additional things, but the foundation is this. Please learn this first part. And then the second part would be your revenue or your income and your expenses. And this is the part that we do for the accruals and prepayment. And we're going to continue, but that is an extract. So we have just been concentrating on this part. And then at the end, we're going back to the entire income statement. But what we have learned, it's accrual world. Meaning, according to the accrual concept, we have to make certain adjustments. And the adjustments, one of them, the first one that you are learning now, would be the accruals and the prepayments. 4 of the accruals and prepayments: accrued expense, accrued revenue, prepaid expense, prepaid revenue. So I don't know if you remember, we had done this exercise. So if you ever want to stop, and these are the answers for you. And this was where we were just identifying the 4 types and the amounts. So you have to be able to do that. That is the first step in doing the financial or preparing the income statement and the balance sheet. Being able to identify which of the 4 it is. There's no way that you can do the income statement and the balance sheet with the accruals and prepayments if you can't first identify. So we spent a lot of time on that. So that is something that you really do need to get into. And then we go into the income statement and preparing the income statement. And what you would have been introduced to would be that there are additional information, or what we call the notes to the accounts. So you learned the trial balance, and the only thing that you knew that was under the trial balance was your closing stock or closing inventory. But what we have learned is that this is also the information. So you would find your closing inventory here, but as well as you would find your accruals and prepayments. All your adjusting entries, but the ones that we are doing right now would be your accruals and prepayments. So for the income statement, you would see these things in terms of the notes, and this will tell you which of the 4, if any. So like, for example, we have repairs paid in advance, that is prepaid repairs. And what we had learned, when you identify whether it's an accrual or prepayment for each of them, then you would know what to do in the income statement to the expense and the revenue. So there's our battery man again, our wonderful battery man. And the AA stands for add accruals. So once you identify it as an accrual, that means you add it. We're going to keep on saying it over and over. So by the end of this lesson, I hope it's stuck in your head. In fact, you're dreaming it. And you less the prepayments, and that goes for both the expenses and the revenue. It's always battery man and yes, Fergie. So this is in your workbooks, this little note, and as you can see, it says if you want to find what is the expense that goes into the income statement, it is the expense paid, which you find in the trial balance, add the accrual, right? And if you want to find the expense in the income statement and there's a prepayment, it will be the expense paid, which is in the trial balance, minus the prepayment. So this was the exercise that we had done. I don't know if you remember, and once again, you can always stop the video and you can take a look at the answers. I gave you a bit of a challenge for some of these, but for the rest of the lesson, we are just concentrating on 2 things: add accruals, less prepayments. So you're not going to have to do any of the other types of calculations, which was just to emphasize, the different ways. We are sticking simply to add accruals, less prepayments. So just like for the expense, it is add accruals and less prepayments. It's the same thing for the revenue. You want to find your revenue for the income statement. It would be the revenue received, which you find in your trial balance. And if there's an accrual, you will add it. If there's a prepayment, you would minus it. And this was the activity that we had done. We are just going to be concentrating on the very easy ones. Like for example, this is a prepayment with a typo. Rent received in advance. When you see in advance, it is a prepayment, and you always less your prepayment. And accruals, so outstanding means accrual, you will add it. So here are the answers for this activity that you would have done in the past. So if you want to check anything, you can just stop the video and take a look. So this is basically both of them together. So you could just freeze it here, but we are just going to move on. This was our example for our previous lessons. So we're just going to go through very, very, very quickly. The trial balance in this case shows the amounts paid and received, and the notes show whether it's an accrual or a prepayment. So once again, what we're going to emphasize, you add your accruals, you less your prepayments. So for this is what we ended up with. Repairs paid in advance, $50. Since it's a prepayment, repairs is an expense, you would have gone to repairs under expense. And what I had emphasized, remember, is you show your working, so you minus your prepayment, and you got the $450. So that is what you're going to do for each time. For all the exercises, going to be repeating over and over until it's stuck in your head once again. And we had to revenue, and you can tell from this, since we last it was a prepayment, that would be this one here, the rent received in advance, and the rent revenue, note number 4, was interest revenue owing $25. That means accrued, so we added it. Where did we get this 100 from? Your trial balance, right? So we're going to emphasize once again, the trial balance is where you find the amounts paid and the amounts received. And the notes tell you which accrual and prepayment, if there's an accrual and prepayment for it. Right, so I had given you this activity. We never got a chance to correct it because we were rushing to move ahead. So we are actually going to do that now. So your activity 6.7 in your workbooks, you have Mr. Small, and you can see here that you have your trial balance, which once again shows your amounts paid. These are expenses because it's under debit. And the amounts received, these are revenue or income because it's under credit. And down here you have your adjustments, your accruals and prepayments. And you can see that you have 3 accruals and prepayments. So we're going to take a step by step. First, I'm going to show you how I do it, because you don't have to do it in the same way that I do it. I will show you another way as well in terms of the order, but it is still, you supposed to get a system to get all of it, right? Because it's the same thing that you do at the end of the day. It's just that, you know, you can do it in any order that you feel most comfortable with. And I am most comfortable going to the trial balance. And when I go to the trial balance, I identify the expenses and revenue. For example, since it's an extract, you already just have expenses and revenue. But when we go to do the full ones, you would see everything: assets, liabilities, income, capital, and expenses. But in our example, you have your expenses 1, 2, 3, and you have your revenue. So you identify, and then you go to your notes and identify for each one whether it's an accrual or prepayment. And if you identify it as an accrual, you will add it. And if you identify it as a prepayment, you would minus it. As easy as that. So we're going to start, as I said, I go to the trial balance and I am going to go in order. You don't have to go in order. So I go with rent. Rent is an expense. What I do, so we have rent. I would look down in my notes here. Do we have any adjustments for rent? And you would see that yes, we do. We have for notes number 1, we have that rent outstanding 200. Every time you see outstanding, it means that it is owed, and that is an accrual. And what do we do with accruals? We add the accruals. So after you have noted that, you actually go to your income statement. Rent is what? It's an expense. So you will go under expense, you put rent, and then since you have an adjustment, you are going to show your working for the adjustment. And your working would be the amount paid, which you find in your trial balance, which is 4,400, add the accrual, which is 200. So you add 200. And the answer you get, you would put it in usually it's the second column, the middle column. But when we are doing the full income statement with all 3 columns, you would see better which column and all that it goes into, right? So your answer, 4,400 plus 200 gives you 4,600. So after you have done that, you can always check it out. But I go back to my trial balance and I find the next one. It's insurance. Insurance is an expense. Once again, I go to my notes. I look down in my notes and I check to see is there any notes that pertain or relate to insurance. And we see that yes, there is insurance paid in advance. 300. Paid in advance means it's a prepayment. See how easy? And what do you do with prepayments? Do you add prepayments? No. You less the prepayments. So what you do, you simply go into your income statement. What is insurance? Insurance is an expense. So you will go under expense, as you see right there. Always put your working. So your working would be the amount in the trial balance less the prepayment. And how much is your prepayment? 300. So you put that working, and 500 minus 300 gives you 200. Simple. Move on. So the next one is interest on loan. So I'm in my trial balance, interest on loan. What's the next step? You go to your notes and you look for anything related to interest on loan. So we go down here, and do you see anything related to interest on loan? No. So what do you do in that case? Don't ignore it, because interest on loan is an expense. All expenses go into the income statement. So you would simply still go into your income statement under expense and put interest on loan. Since you have no adjustments to make, you just simply put what is in the trial balance, which is 1,600. Easy? Right. So we will move on to the next one, which is commissions received, which is revenue. You will go down into your notes and look for anything related to commissions received, and there is nothing. So what do you do? Once again, you still have to put it into your income statement. Since it's revenue, you will go under revenue and you will put commissions received. And since there are no adjustments, there's no working to be done, you just put exactly what is in the trial balance, which is 2,900. Last, we have rent received. Rent received is 4,800. So you check down in your notes. Do you see anything? Yes, we have something related to rent received in advance. It's in advance. When you see in advance, it's a prepayment, and you less prepayments, so you would less it. So you're going into your income statement. It's revenue, so you go under revenue. You write the name of the revenue, which is rent received. Since there is an adjustment, you put your working, which would be the amount in your trial balance, 4,800, less the prepayment, which is 1,200. So the amount in your trial balance, 4,800, less the prepayment of 1,200, and the answer you get is 3,600, and you're done. You make sure that you got everything, right? So you check and you make sure that you accounted for everything. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 5 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we good. But we'll get back into that a bit more later. What we're going to do now is some of you might have thought, why didn't we just check the notes? So I preferred the going to the trial balance and going through each one and then checking my notes after. Some people may feel better about going to the additional information or the notes and going that way. So I'm just going to spend some time just showing you that it can be done that way. It is your choice. But after I show you this order, for those who might prefer this order, I will stick to my order, which I like the trial balance. But feel free as long as you get the correct answer. So this time we're going to go to the notes first. So we're going to rent outstanding, and you identify which is it an accrual or a prepayment. Outstanding means it's accrual, and what do you do with accruals? You add the accrual. So you will just go into your income statement, rent. Once again, you must put your working and put your answer. So you're not going to spend much time with the explanation because we already did it. This is just doing it in a different order. So you go to the next note. It is insurance paid. In advance means it's a prepayment and you less prepayments. So you will go under expenses because insurance is an expense. And to show your working, it will be the amount in the balance sheet, the amount in the trial balance less the prepayment. And the answer would be 200. After you do that, you go to the next one, rent received in advance, which is a prepayment. So therefore, you would just find the amount in your trial balance. Since it's revenue, you will go under revenue. You write rent received and you put the working for it. Now, I just want to point out, notice it is the revenue or the expense. It's not, don't put accrued or prepaid in your income statement. Remember that, okay? So even though you identify like this, for example, as a prepayment, you're not going to go here and put prepaid because as we're going to revise again, prepayments and accruals are either current assets or current liabilities. So I don't want to see that there. It is rent received and you're working, and then you will put your answer. So this order, for those who prefer to go with the notes, my only problem with this order is that you have to make sure that you got everything, because the notes is only 3 notes. Does that mean that you only have 3 things or items to put into your income statement? No, it does not mean. So if you prefer to do it this way, that is okay, but just remember that you will now have to go and check your trial balance to see if you got all the expenses and all the revenue. So, for example, did we get rent? Yes, we did. Right? Did we get insurance? Seeing it here? Yes, we did. Did we get interest on loan? You seeing any interest on loan under expenses? No. So you see why you have to be careful. If you choose, or if you feel more comfortable going to the notes, you just have to remember you have to go and check your trial balance, because it's all the income and all the expenses that have to go into your income statement, which is why I prefer to go with the trial balance first. So that is just explaining why I prefer that. If you still feel more comfortable going to the notes, just remember you have to go back to the trial balance to look for those that you may have missed. So because we don't have interest on loan, we have to go and put it under expenses, interest on loan. And since there are no adjustments, you're just going to put the amount in the trial balance. Good? Commissions received, once again, you check your income statement. Do we have anything for commissions received? No, we do not. So you're going to have to, oh, okay, so we put in our interest on loan, and that is why we now crossed it out. But now we're going commissions received. We did not do that. So you have to go into your revenue and put your commissions received. And since there were no adjustments, you just put the answer, 2,900. And since you have put it in, now you can see, you can check it off or cross it off or whatever. You have already gotten it. And then the last one, rent received. Is it there? Yes, it is. Those, remember, it's there. So cross it off, and that means that you have done everything. So this is your answer, whichever order you do it from in your process. This is the answer you're supposed to get. You see, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So this is your answer. You can stop your video if you need to look and make sure. And since it's an extract, this might be enough where you just put in, or you may have to add it up, and you just simply just tally. You draw your line, a tally, and you put it in the last column. Same thing for your expenses, and this will be the complete extract for 6.7. This is your answer if you want to check and double check. So we're going to do another activity, but as I said before, I'm going to use my method, and that is to go into the trial balance. We're going to go through this quicker because you'd realize it's the same thing over and over again, which is the point that I want to get you guys to. So we go into the trial balance, and then we will go to the notes and identify whether it's an accrual or prepayments, and you just add the accruals and less the prepayments. So our income statement, we go rent. Rent is an expense. We look down in our notes. Are there anything? Yes, there is rent owing. Owing means accrued. And what do? You add accruals, AA. So you will just go to your income statement. Rent under expense. Must put your working. 2,400 from your trial balance. Plus the 600. Which is your accrual, and the answer that you will get, 3,000. Easy. Good. Next one, in your trial balance, we have an expense, insurance expense, 400. Check your notes. Anything? Yes. We have a paid in advance, which is a prepayment. And what do we do with prepayments? We less the prepayments. So insurance is under expense. Put your working, which is 400 from your trial balance, less your prepayment of 100, and the answer you get, 300. Moving on quickly, salaries. Once you get a groove, you see what it will be very, very quick. So you have to practice, huh? Right. So salaries, expense, you look down in your notes, nothing there for salaries. So what do? Don't ignore it. You go to your income statement. Salaries is an expense. You put it there, and you just put the 3,000, which is the amount in your trial balance. Moving on quickly. Commissions received is revenue. You look below. Is there anything for commissions received? Yes, there is. There is a still owing, which is an accrual. What do? AA, add accruals. Go under revenue, you write commissions received, must show your working, 2,300 from the trial balance plus your accrual of 900, and that gives you 3,200. Last one, rent received, 3,600. Check below in your notes. Yes, there is an adjustment. It's in advance, which is a prepayment, and you less prepayments. So you less your prepayment, and what you end up with would be going to your income statement under revenue, 3,600 from trial balance less the prepayment of 800, 2,800 is your answer for rent received. Good? And you're finished. But just to make sure that you got everything, remember what you said, you will just double check. but you have this here, and you can just tally it, and this is your answer for 6.8 for Mr. Big, right? So this is an income statement extract, and you see how quick the process is once you have your nice little routine groove, so it's the practice, and when you practice, it becomes very easy. But the main thing is always show working. You must always, you're checking the answers. Each answer that I have shown you has working. So that is extremely important. Please always show your working. So what we had been doing all the time were the extracts. Now, and this is where this is the important part of our lesson. Everything that we did before, all the review and overview and all this kind of thing, and the constant repeating and repetition and all that sort of thing, is leading up to this. This is what you are aiming towards, being able to do not just the extracts, because some questions may ask you just for the extracts, especially for the balance sheet with the current assets and current liabilities. But you have to know how to do the entire income statement. So for the income statement, it stays the same. It's the same format. So remember what I said before. Go and learn or revise, practice your format for the first part, because this is the most challenging one that you have to learn. You see carriage inwards. Carriage inwards is an expense. So this is the only one up here that you might get an accrual or a prepayment. If you see anything with carriage inwards, like an accrual or prepayment, you do the same thing you do for everything else. Add accrual, or you less prepayment. Simple, okay? So here you would do that. But the main part of the income statement that has to do with accruals and prepayments would be what we were doing before, which would be the revenue. And you just do it exactly after you have done the first part and you reach the part with the revenue. You do what we have been doing all the time, which that extract, that part of it you do here, which means that you're going to put whatever it is, and you're going to just have your working if there's an adjustment, and put your answer in the middle column. The same thing that we had just been practicing. So the same process. You would just go to the trial balance, all your revenue. So you can do it in that way. You can identify all of your revenue, write down all of your revenue, check your notes for each one to see if there's an adjustment. If there's an accrual, you just add it. If there is a prepayment, you just less it, minus it. Simple as that. Put your working, then put the answer in the middle column. And you do the same thing for the expenses. You identify the expenses, you check each one like we did before in our examples and our activities. You check each one. You see whether there's an accrual or a prepayment. If there's an accrual, you add it. If there's a prepayment, you less it. If there's no adjustment, you just put it in with the amount that is in the trial balance. Simple. And then you just move on your revenue less your expenses, and you get your net profit last. Right? So first you will do the income statement. You start with your first part, which is called the trading section, and you would work out your gross profit, and then you will move on to your revenue and your expenses, and that is where you have to check for your adjustments in terms of your accruals and prepayments. And once you just remember that you add your accruals and you less your prepayments, you're good.